Hey guys, it's time for a new Q&A. I recently put up a new video on YouTube, as well as posted a question on both my Twitter and my Facebook asking for questions related to my new album. I did a Terrible But Great related EP Q&A a little while back, just dedicated to that first EP. So I figured I'd do the same sort of thing here to kind of address any questions that you guys might have. So I'm going to start with some of the stuff on Facebook, then I'll go to Twitter, and then I'll try and pick through what's on YouTube. There's a lot of questions, so I'm not going to be able to get to every one of them. Some of them don't even really address the album, so I'm going to omit those as well. But I'll try and get through what I can, and if not, if I miss yours or whatever, I'll try and answer them, just typing in the comments or something. First question is from Dylan Nelson. He says, what was the first and last song you wrote for the album or finished? Well, the first song I probably wrote for the entire thing would be Elixir, and I actually wrote the majority of that song before I finished my first EP, but I didn't really have anywhere to put it in there, and I wasn't quite satisfied with it yet, so it didn't end up making it to that one. But the first song I really sat down and tried figuring something out with would probably be Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt, and I put a lot of effort into that one. The last song, I don't know what the last song I wrote would be, but the last one that got finished was kind of a last second thing, and that was actually Ether, which is this one. So that was a riff I wrote quite a while ago. I don't remember exactly how long ago, but it was one of those things. I just took a quick video of it just so I could reference it later, maybe use it for a later project or something, and I came across it just on my computer, and I wanted to use it somehow, but Eric was just starting mixing and mastering and everything like that, so I didn't really have time to make it into a full song, but I wanted to do something cool with it, so I thought it would work really nicely as sort of a transition between a heavier song like Derelict into a softer song like Cerulean. So that's why it goes from electric and fades into acoustic. I thought it'd be kind of neat, and I like the way it turned out. I thought it was pretty cool. Question from Jacob. Did you plan on having more guest spots on your album than from other artists? Oh yeah. The only artist that ended up making it on my album, just like the last one, was Stemage, or Grant Henry, and Viking Guitar, or Eric Peabody. Both of those are great guys. I've become really good friends with them. And I'm super happy with what I was able to do with them on this record. So I don't really have any reasons to be upset about not being able to get more. It gave me personally more room to kind of stretch my legs a little bit and see what I could do. So rather than leave so much space into other people's hands, I kind of did my best to show what I could do. That being said, I did try contacting a few different people, all of which did not pan out. For example, I did try and get Pliny on the album. That obviously didn't work. I sent him a couple messages on different sites and never heard back. And then I actually went to his masterclass. I think it was in November or maybe late October. I don't remember exactly when it was, but it was the second masterclass I went to, and I don't remember who brought it up. Either I brought it up or one of the other people at the masterclass mentioned him doing guest solos and stuff like that. I'm pretty sure it was somebody else, because he's done a lot of guest spots on different people's albums, and he mentioned that it was something he had a lot of fun with, but he was getting a little tired of, and that broke my heart a little bit because I would absolutely love to collaborate with him, but he's got a lot on his plate, and he's definitely moving forward. So I can't really blame him for taking the time to do other things than working on other people's projects. I also asked C2A. He did get back to me. I talked to him a couple times, but he was just too busy. He didn't have the time to commit to it, and it was like right after he put out his Set Course for Andromeda album. So I figured it'd be kind of the best time to do it. He just put out an album, so he's probably got a little bit of downtime, but he went right into writing a tab book for his Senpai EP, and then he was getting ready to go on tour like as soon as he was done with that, so he couldn't do it. But I did a little nod to him on Derelict, and that was actually the song I originally wanted him to be on. But I ended up, doing, like I said, a little nod to him, and I actually sent it to him. He thought it was cool. But yeah, he obviously didn't make it on the album. I did ask Jake Howsam Lowe, who's a very good guitar player out of Australia. He plays with Pliny, and he plays in a band called the Helix Nebula. And he agreed to do it, actually, but he wasn't going to be able to do it until a time where I figured I was going to be done with the album already. I asked him at some point in 2016. I don't remember exactly when, but he said that his schedule was kind of full for a while, and he wouldn't really be able to do anything until January or so. And I had really pictured at that point to be done with the album by then. Little did I know it ended up being finished in March and coming out in April. So, I probably could have gotten him on the album, but I don't know, the timing was just kind of weird, and it just didn't work out. I'd love to work with him on another project. That'd be really great. He's incredible. I did ask I Built the Sky. His name is Rowan. I don't quite remember his last name. He's a really great guitar player, another instrumental, kind of heavy, guitar-driven artist, and he wasn't available. I don't remember exactly why he said he couldn't. It was a similar sort of thing with C2A where I caught him like a little bit after his album had come out, and it just didn't really catch him at a good time, I guess. He still had a lot going on, so he wasn't able to do it. But whatever. And the last person I actually asked was a guy that some of you probably have seen on YouTube. He goes by Kurt's Covers. If you're wondering what the sound is over here, the cat's trying to get comfortable. But yeah, Kurt's Covers. He's a cool guy. I'd done a couple collaboration videos with him in the past, and I've talked to him for years, and I actually really wanted him to do the bass for all of Green Canaries. I thought it would be really cool to have him on there. I think he's a great bass player, and I don't know, every time I got in touch with him, he just hadn't been able to do anything with it, and I'm just trying to get this album out, and I'm not really at the point where I'm ready to just keep delaying this thing, so I couldn't really wait for him anymore. But it's too bad. It would have been cool to have him on there. I think that's about it. I mean, I did ask Nick Johnston if he would be on the first EP, and he had a couple stipulations. He had a price, and he said he would have had to really dug the song. At the time, I didn't really have the money to do it, and I probably could have this time around if he was still asking the same price, and if he even had the time. I doubt he had the time, because he was working on his last album, and he's been doing clinics all over the world, so I just didn't even bother asking. I figured he was just too busy. But yeah, that's about it for guest spots. Next is from Caleb Gain. He says, "What was the hardest song to record on the album?" I'd say it's kind of a toss-up between "Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt" and "I Feel Like a Big Mouse." "I Feel Like a Big Mouse" is probably the hardest song to play on the album. That's why that one's up there. But "Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt" was just a challenging song to write. It was something that the rhythms and the structure and everything came together like that, but I could not get myself satisfied. I just wasn't satisfied with the leads for the longest time, and I just played it over and over and over again until I got something that I was happy with, and that just took a very long time, way longer than any of the other songs. Let me see. Okay, that's it for Facebook questions, I believe. We'll go to Twitter now. Nicholas says, "How long did it take to write the album?" I mean, I kind of wrote and recorded at the same time, so it's not like I wrote it in one section and then I did all the recording, so it's kind of hard to say. I started kind of slowly writing pretty much as soon as Terrible But Great was done, and that was out in September of 2015. So if I counted it from then, it would be about a year and a half. But I didn't really start buckling down until early 2016 and really trying to get stuff on paper. So I'd say anywhere from a year to a year and a half. Same person asks, "Did you use drum machines or was there a real drummer?" Well, my buddy Grant Henry, who I mentioned earlier, he goes by Stemmage online. That's kind of his little moniker. He does all the drums for me. He did on the last album as well, and he did all the bass on the last album. I did the bass on this album here, but I really wanted him to do the drums again. And I don't know if he used it for the entire album, but he got a new sort of software program, whatever you want to call it, called Aero Drums. It's AERO Drums. It's really cool. It uses sensors on your feet and on these drumsticks that it comes with, and there's like a little camera that you put in front of your computer, and you basically air drum and it knows what you're doing. It's crazy. Go check it out. So he did a mixture of that and I'm assuming just programming drums, and he did a killer job. I love the way he writes drums. You know, I really like working with him. Okay, this question I've gotten from quite a few of you, asking about the names of my songs and kind of where they come from, why I name them certain ways, and where the names themselves come from. So, a lot of them, or I'd say maybe half of them, I get from some of my favorite TV shows or movies or something like that, or even video games. You know, I got Ether and Elixir from a video game. Some like Chrono Trigger and Final Fantasy, like RPG sort of Japanese kind of games. I just thought they sounded like interesting titles. You know, I thought they sounded cool. Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt is just kind of a continuation of My Fingers Hurt, and it's also another line from Happy Gilmore, like My Fingers Hurt. So I just kind of wanted to go along the same sort of line with that one. Derelict, it's just a word. You know, I thought it was a cool word. And I just liked the idea of it, you know, something kind of run down and kind of beat up and whatever. You know, I thought it fit the song pretty well. Cerulean is just a really nice shade of blue, and I always kind of saw a shade of blue when I was playing Cerulean, like when I was writing it. named that one. Um, what else? There's, I Feel Like a Big Mouse. That was just a line from Uncle Buck, which is a really good John Candy movie. Bad Motivator was from Star Wars. Just another funny line. I always just liked Luke whining about the droid having a bad motivator. So I did that one. Cold Hands. My girlfriend just has really cold hands a lot of the time, so that's why I named it that one, because I kind of wrote that song for her. Mr. Bibb is my cat. I just kind of wanted to do a little homage to him. Not this cat, by the way. The cat that I grew up with that lives with my father. And finally, Green Canaries was kind of a thing I took from the Three Stooges, which is an awesome show. I always loved watching Three Stooges. It was from the episode Men in Black, and there was like this insane hospital patient who says he's seeing things. He's seeing green canaries, and Mo is like sitting in the corner. He's like, green canaries, and then a fucking green canary lands right on his shoulder, and he freaks out. I don't know. It's funny. So yeah, that's about it for song titles. I just don't really worry about song titles that much. If it's something that I think sounds either funny or cool, I go for it. I don't really stress too much on it, and I try to get the song titles figured out as soon as possible, because it makes recording and all that sort of back and forth a little easier when you're trying to communicate certain songs with people you're working with, rather than calling a song, song 2, or this is riffy whatever song 3. I like having the names kind of figured out. Another question: how would you characterize the genre of your songs? Well, I don't really worry about characterizing myself. I don't like to put myself in a box. I've heard people calling my stuff this, calling it that. I don't think it's pop punk. I don't think it's punk or anything like that. It's just me. I don't really think of trying to make everything sort of fit a genre. Half the album is kind of fast and upbeat, but the other half is slow and melodic and acoustic. There's totally different songs on this album, so it's hard to even put it in a category anyway. What string gauge did I use for the album? This is from Mark Healy. Blah blah. Brain fart. The main guitar string gauge that I use is 10 to 52, which would be 10, 13, 17, 30, 42, and 52. Although I have been experimenting with 9.5 instead of 10, a 12 instead of 13, and a 16 instead of a 17. And it kind of lets me do like my lead work a little easier. But I don't quite like going to 9s. 9s are a little too thin for me, so I really like 9.5s. But I don't think I even tried those until after the album was done. So I'd say most of it was with 10 to 52s. Do I see myself playing any other instruments in the future? Not really. I got this, but this is still technically a guitar, I'd love to be able to play piano. I do like drumming in general, but I'm not a drummer. I accept that. But yeah, I like mandolin. Mandolin's really cool. But yeah, I don't know how to play it. And frankly, I don't know if I'd ever want to take the time to try and figure out how to learn that, because I've still got so much to learn on guitar that trying to learn another instrument just seems like time being taken away from learning guitar. So I don't know. I kind of would rather just stick to guitar for now. All right, getting to the YouTube comments. Let me just check my camera here real quick. All right. That should be okay. I'm going to try and speed this up a little bit. I got a question. Do you record all the songs yourself, or do you go to a studio? I record all my guitar parts and all my bass parts here. From there, I would send everything that I have over to Grant, who does the drums. He would make a drum track, send it back, and all this would be, very, I wouldn't say very, but it's sort of rough, but all in time. I'd figure out an exact structure that I want, and I'd make sure I wasn't going to change the structure. Then I'd send it to Grant. Grant would send me drums, and then I would sort of fine-tune everything. I would write leads, because before I would just write like the general structure and whatever. I'd get as much done as I could, as cleanly as I could, and then I would send it to my buddy Eric, who would do all the mixing, mastering, and all that. So definitely no studio time. This is pretty much just what I would do after work and on weekends, stuff like that. Let's see. Any plans to record with the ukulele? I think it'd be really cool to. Maybe on an acoustic song, just to kind of accompany it and give it a little more depth or something. That'd be really cool. I'm certainly not opposed to it, so we'll see. He also asked, any new songs other than what's on the album? No. I put everything onto that. I didn't hide any bonus tracks or anything like that. So right now it's just about starting to write again and get back in the zone, I guess. But yeah, everything that I have, you've heard. Let's see. Another person asking about the song titles. Cade is asking how I wrote I Feel Like a Big Mouse. Let me see. I have a couple videos that I can post where I'm doing like a quick run through of the song at a very early stage and just kind of figuring out how to write it in general. But it's the same sort of thing for every song. Like I just try to get a basic rhythm and a sort of structure down, and then I worry about all the melodies and everything later. I knew I wanted something with a capo. I did a capo on the 2nd fret. So everything is tuned pretty much the same on the whole album, but I wanted that one to use a capo and kind of separate it from everything else. But for that song, I really liked this riff. If I can remember how to play it. So that was one of the first riffs that I wrote, but I'm pretty sure the first riff I wrote was the intro, and that's usually the case for most of my songs. I don't usually write the songs out of order. I try to start with an intro, and that just sort of thing kind of came to me one day. I was just screwing around on my acoustic. I did a lot of my writing on acoustic, and it was just like this. Although it had kind of a slightly different rhythm to it, and it's kind of weird to actually hear the way that I did it. But yeah, I mean, basically what I said before with figuring out a rough structure and then kind of fine-tuning it, writing leads over it later, getting the drums done, that sort of thing. Most of the songs I wrote kind of in the same way. The Punk Agent wants to know how many instruments I can play. Basically just guitar and bass. I mean, I could figure out some other stringed instruments and technically say I play them, but it wouldn't really be very good playing. I'd like to be able to play piano someday. That'd be cool. But like I said before, I just kind of focus everything on guitar. It's definitely my main thing. All right, Ryan Gardner's asking, what does your songwriting process look like? And I kind of touched on that already. He says, do you find yourself often sitting down to write after being inspired by another song? Or do you often work without outside inspiration? I'm constantly getting outside inspiration, but it's usually a little thing that kind of sparks an entire song, and I've definitely heard people say that before. I don't remember who said it. I think it might have been Paul Gilbert. Just finding just like a little part of a song that you're like, I want to do something with that sort of feel or that sort of riff or something. Just so you're not completely ripping them off, but just taking inspiration. So, for example, there's actually quite a few examples of that in my new album. For example, Green Canaries, that whole kind of swing feel to it. But those first couple chords. There is a Living End song. The Living End's one of my favorite bands, and there's a song of theirs called Universe, and I just love the rhythm of that song, and I can't quite remember how it goes, but it's like, how the fuck is it go? It's just the same sort of rhythm and swing feel that I just fucking love hearing every time I hear it. I crank that song every time, and I knew I was onto something when I sent that over to Grant for drums, and he's like, oh man, I love the feel of this. That's what she said. And I don't know, I was just really happy with that one. Another thing, for Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt, I mentioned Seeing Pliny, and there was a couple things about Pliny that definitely inspired me on this album. He does a lot of tapping, and actually before I saw him, he put out a song called Electric Sunrise, and there was this really great tapping part in the beginning of that song, like right after the soft part kind of fades out and it comes in big. He's doing some tapping part, and that made me want to do some sort of tapping, and that's why I did the tapping on Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt. Can't really hear it. Something simple, but I thought it really gave something to the song that I thought was cool. Another thing that Pliny had influenced me on was in Bad Motivator. I had written out this whole second section of the song that I just wasn't really in love with, and he mentioned something, actually going back to that song Electric Sunrise, where he's doing something like, basically just talking about how a lot of his songs are just two parts, just going from one to the other, back to the same one, and back and forth. And it's not like one, two, a third thing, a fourth thing, a fifth thing. So I kind of took inspiration from that, and the very last section of Bad Motivator does something like that. It's like, wrote like a riff over that, and I kind of went back to the intro riff. How's it go? That sort of thing, and then But yeah, there's definitely people that inspire me. Rush is always inspiring me. I love Rush, and I really wanted to use the Alex Lifeson chord, which he uses on Hemispheres. And that chord starts the chorus of Cerulean. That's about all I can think of off the top of my head, anyway. Next question. What is the process of coming up with a complex riff? You have a melody in your head prior, or do you start just fucking around on guitar? It really is just fucking around. I mean, I like stuff that is fun to play, you know. There's a new riff I've been working on. Also, a lot of the riffier stuff that I do tends to be in drop D. Like Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt, I Feel Like a Big Mouse, Green Canaries, Bad Motivator, those are all in drop D. So, I don't know, I just find riff writing easier when you can do the sort of chugging. But there was a newer riff that I've been possibly writing a new song for, I'm not entirely sure yet, but it goes like... So, a lot of it is just sitting around playing guitar and just trying to come up with something that sounds cool but is also fun to play, and trying not to sound so much like your other songs at the same time. That's pretty hard. I do that a lot. Also, how much did it cost to record approximately? Any cost savers you recommend? I recommend being an all-around nice person and just becoming friends with whoever you can, because if you're a friend and you're a cool guy, than if you're a dick. That's pretty much where I'm going to leave that. With Eric, we didn't really discuss money, but I had actually given him some gear that I was no longer using that was worth a decent amount of money that we kind of agreed would, you know, count for a certain amount of work. So that's kind of how that went. And then me and Grant kind of figured out a certain amount of money for drums and all that. I'm not really going to get into specifics or anything, but that's definitely a good way to save, is just make friends, and especially make friends with talented people and cool people, and I don't know. Do as much as you can yourself and try to get everything as close to perfect as you can before you waste any time recording or anything like that, you know. It definitely pays to be as good at what you want to do as possible. I Like Cereal says, does wearing your cheese hat make you write cheesier riffs? I actually don't wear my cheese hat that often because it's quite uncomfortable. I have a big head and it doesn't really fit in there that well. Daniel asks, I see you've got a BCR. I see you've got your BCR in the background, Boxcar Racer. Would you ever be keen to make a post-hardcore emo type song like they did? I kind of touched on this before, but I have no intention of really trying to fit myself into any sort of genre on purpose. I just write what I write, and I write the way my brain and my heart feels at the time. You know, whatever comes out comes out. I'm not gonna purposely say, oh, I'm gonna write a reggae song or I'm gonna write a blues song. You know, whatever comes out comes out. Once again, I'm just gonna check my camera real quick because every now and then it would shut off. All right, next question. What song did you enjoy writing and recording the most? I had a lot of fun with Cold Hands. That was just a really big song. It was a long song. It had a lot of layers to it, a lot of acoustic working with electric, and it was just a lot of fun doing like harmonies and stuff like that. I'd say that was probably the funnest one, actually, and that was one of the later songs. That was probably like the second to last song that I did, actually. Gage asked, what do you use to mix all the audio for your songs? I don't use anything because I send everything to Eric Peabody, and he took care of all of that for me, and he does a great job. I know he uses Reaper for a DAW. Other than that, you'd have to ask him. I'm sure he'll chime in. Question, what are your main influences on the new album? Definitely a lot of instrumental kind of prog rock sort of things like Pliny, Intervals, C2A. Rush was a big inspiration. I really liked Rush's song Hope. They're coming for me. Rush's song Hope definitely inspired Mr. Bibb because it's just a 12-string jam, and I really liked that. Next question. Knowing how your last album went and learning about yourself more as a songwriter, what were you trying to achieve more of on this album compared to Terrible but Great? This is from Cody. I was very happy with the way Terrible but Great came out, but I felt like I rushed it just a little bit, and I didn't really prove myself as much as I wanted to. I wanted to get a couple songs out there that I could, hand to somebody and say, hey, this is what I'm about, and I'd love for you to hear it. That being said, I love the way the songs turned out, but I felt like, for lack of a better word, I didn't show off enough. I didn't really push myself enough on that album, and I really tried to push myself on this one as much as I could. That's why there's some parts where I'm playing, pretty much as fast as I can, or as intricately as I can, or blending stuff as best I can. So I just tried to give more, and I didn't want to leave any stone unturned. I wanted to have every sort of sound I could get, and that's why, the album, why it went from being an EP, originally, this was going to be another EP, it went from being that to having 6 songs to me saying, let's do 7 songs, to 8 songs, to 10 songs. So it just kept growing and growing, and I'm really happy with the way it turned out. Andrew, a couple questions from you. It says, what guitar did you use to record I Feel Like a Big Mouse? I'm pretty sure I used my Odessa out back over here, the natural black one, and I used that and something else. I'm pretty sure it was that and the PRS a lot for the rhythms, and I'm pretty sure I did the Strandberg a lot for the leads. Actually, I think it was those two for the rhythm, and I think Strandberg and the PRS at the time for the leads. Another one from Andrew. How would you feel if you could only play Strandbergs and no other guitar? Well, I love my acoustic stuff, so it'd be kind of sad not to be able to play acoustic. But I love Strandbergs. They're amazing. They feel like you're barely holding anything. They're incredibly lightweight. They're very ergonomic. They sound amazing with the right pickups, and they're just a blast to play. I like having your typical guitar, like my Manson over here, the 335 over there, just to kind of get inspiration in different ways. That's why I'm always fucking trading guitars around, because I get inspired with different gear, and they get me to write certain ways. I don't write the same type of music on my Strandbergs as I do on my acoustics or my 335. Everything inspires me a little differently. So I could definitely play Strandbergs and only Strandbergs for the rest of my life, but I like that I don't have to. They're definitely my favorite guitar company, and they're definitely my favorite, just guitars to use in general. If I just want to hang out and just play a guitar and just kind of relax, it's most likely going to be a Strandberg. Another question. Sean asked what type of amp profiles I used on the first track, as well as which guitars I used on that. Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt. Pretty much the whole record, if I'm doing like a heavier sort of guitar tone, I'm either using a Friedman tone, which I'm pretty sure was the BE 100. I'm pretty sure. Or I'm using a Soldano tone. I use those a lot, and I think a little bit of the Dumble inspired tones. This is all with my Axe Effects too, by the way. The very intro of Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt was actually recorded with the Fender Duosonic that I had. I thought it would just be cool to have it on the album somewhere. I didn't have that guitar for very long, but that's what I used for that. And then the rest of the song, I used a lot of the PRS that I had, the blue PRS, and I used a lot of the first Strandberg that I had, the blue one. Those were the main guitars I used. Were there any guitar riffs from your new album that were meant or written during Terrible But Great? Also, what was the hardest or longest song to complete? I kind of touched on all of these earlier. The only thing I had really started writing back then was Elixir. Hardest song, and the one that just took the longest to complete was probably Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt. That one was just a hard one to feel satisfied with. Another one about what guitars I used for the album. I assume the Strandberg was involved based on the cover. Yeah, I used Strandbergs all over this album. Most of the album was recorded with a Strandberg, whether it was the blue one. I actually used the blue one a lot for recording. I used the purple one a little bit. I used the purple one on Cerulean a lot, and I used it on Bad Motivator a lot. The two Strandbergs that I have now, I haven't really... This one, I definitely didn't use. I just got this the other day. But the other one, I only used on the album a little bit, not too much. It's funny, Terrible But Great, I recorded most of that album with my 335, and I think I only used it for like a little bit on this album. I think I used it a little bit on Green Canaries, and that might be it. I'm not sure. I just wasn't really digging that guitar for a while. I used my Big Taylor for pretty much all of the acoustics. I used my Epiphone 12-string for Mr. Bibb, and then I used my my short scale Jaguar Squire bass for a few of the songs, like Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt, maybe a couple others like Derelict, and then I switched over to the jazz bass for recording like the second half of them. That's not really an album question. Which song was the hardest to record? I already answered that. I guess this is kind of related. In your opinion, what's the best amp processor solution for playing in an apartment with neighbors? I mean, there's a lot of solutions. I use my Axe Effects, and I kind of run it through some Yamaha speakers, and I'm getting, great stuff with that. Tones that I'm totally happy with. A lot of people use Kempers. A lot of people use whatever amp they want, but they'll go into like a DI box, like a Torpedo or something like that, to basically go straight to their computer, and you can make it as loud as you want. So there's a lot of options. I really do like my Axe Effects, though. Would I ever have someone sing or write lyrics to my songs? I'm not opposed to it. In fact, when I was younger, I used to write lyrics all the time. I mean, I used to think I was really deep back then too, but they're totally terrible. But it was something that I liked doing. I'm not opposed to doing it now. I I'd kind of feel weird having someone else write lyrics to my songs. But I'd be cool with somebody singing on my songs. But these days, you know, it's just not something that I'm really focused on. What riff on the album took the most time to record? Probably something on I Feel Like a Big Mouse. There's a guitar solo section that was really challenging. Which part was it? It's like... It's hard to play on this fucking thing. That sort of section on I Feel Like a Big Mouse was pretty tough to figure out. And that whole song was just one big fucking fast riff, and it was challenging, let me tell you. Theodore asked what I look for in buying a new guitar. I look for inspiration more than anything else. That's the best thing I can say. If something inspires you when you pick it up and makes you want to play riffs, it makes you want to write, it makes you just want to jam, that's the best thing. You know, who cares if it's a piece of crap, you know, or people think it's a piece of crap, or, you know, hopefully it's not super expensive. You know, unfortunately that's the case sometimes. But, you know, whatever makes you want to play. Nick asks, if you had a signature guitar, what brand would you have make it and what style? It would be a Strandberg. I love Strandberg, and it would have some sort of pickup in it, you know, kind of molded for me. I really like the bare knuckle Juggernaut pickups, but there are things about it that I wish I could change. So it would be kind of like a take on those, maybe a little different. Maybe there's pickups out there that would do it perfectly that I just haven't played yet. I don't know. It would probably have a mahogany body, a rosewood neck, because I love rosewood necks. Mahogany bodies are great at giving like a warmer sort of tone. And then it would probably have a koa top on it because I love koa. It's really nice wood from Hawaii, and it's just stunning. Let's see. Okay, we're getting to the last couple questions. Once again, I'm interested in the inspiration of song titles. Yeah, I kind of mentioned that already. He's also, this is from Alex, Polar Alex. He's asking where I got my custom picks. I get my picks from InTuneGP, as in guitarpicks.com. I've used them for both album releases to do some custom guitar picks. And if you buy my album, like a hard copy, you get one of these, which is pretty cool. This is Mr. Bibb right there, and then on the back it says with Vigor. They're not super expensive. They're a little pricey, but they're really great picks. You know, I don't really use these though. I just kind of give them away. But I would totally use these and be totally fine with them. They're great picks. Really great quality too, and they won't send anything to you unless you're totally satisfied. Like they'll email you back and forth, making sure everything's perfect before they make it, which is really cool. Some of these questions I just can't really answer because they would take forever. But I guess I'm going to make this one the last question. What tuning was the album in? Most of the album is in half step down, or the entire album is in half step down, but some of it is also in drop D from there. So it would be like drop D flat, and that's basically the benchmark for the whole album, except well, let me just go down the line. Now Your Back's Gonna Hurt is in drop D flat, drop D flat, and then Derelict is E flat, Ether is in E flat, Cerulean is E flat. I Feel Like a Big Mouse is in drop D flat, but then I have a capo on the second fret. Elixir is in E flat. Bad Motivator is in drop D flat. Cold Hands is in E flat. Mr. Bibb is actually in open E flat. So everything, basically I started with everything half a step down, and then I made it into an E chord. So I tuned the second string up a full step. I turned the third string up a full step, and then the fourth string up half a step. So it basically just makes an open E chord, but a half a step down. And then Green Canaries was drop D flat. Yeah. Yeah, so that's about it. Hopefully my camera's still recording right now, because that would make me sad if it wasn't. But I appreciate you guys asking all these questions. And yeah, hopefully I answered as many as I could, as best as I could. If you have any more questions, feel free to leave them below, and I'll answer them with a quick comment or something here and there. Or as always, you can ask me stuff on my Ask FM or Facebook or any of those. So thanks for watching. If you haven't checked out the album yet, please do. If you want to buy it, that would really, really please me a lot. But if you can't, that's totally fine. At the very least, share it if you like it. That means just as much to me. So thank you very much to everybody that already picked it up, and catch you guys later.